It was Mother's Day, and my son had just handed his mother-in-law a shimmering envelope with a perfect bow. Brenda opened it with her impeccable nails, and her eyes lit up as if she had won the lottery. Tickets to Paris. A 5-star hotel, all-inclusive. 15 full days. Ryan hugged her tight, tighter than he had hugged me in years, and told her with a voice thick with emotion, "You deserve the whole world, Brenda. You have always been there for us." I was sitting on the living room sofa, holding my own gift, still unopened. A small paper bag with a simple bow. Everyone clapped. Jessica wiped away an emotional tear. Someone took pictures. Brenda posed with the tickets in her hand, like a queen receiving her crown. Then, all eyes turned to me. Ryan walked over and handed me my gift with a polite smile, the kind you give an acquaintance, not the woman who gave you life. I opened the bag with hands that were shaking, even though I tried to keep them steady. A gift card. $15. From a discount store. And a handwritten note, in the rushed script of someone who did it 5 minutes before leaving the house. "Mom, it's important to be grateful for what we have. I love you." I felt something break inside me, but it was not my heart. It was something deeper. It was the last illusion I had left about my son. I looked up and saw Jessica watching me with a barely contained smirk. Brenda observed the scene with that satisfied expression of someone who has just won a silent battle. Ryan was waiting for me to say something, to be grateful, to act as I always did. So I smiled. I smiled the way I had learned to smile through all these years of small humiliations, of slights disguised as affection, of broken promises, and increasingly cold hugs. "Thank you, honey," I said in a calm voice. What a thoughtful detail. Some of the guests laughed uncomfortably. Others looked down at their plates. A cousin of Jessica's murmured something about how difficult it is to shop for gifts, but I knew the truth. Everyone in that room knew the truth. $15 for the woman who sold her sewing machine to pay for his college. $15 for the mother who worked double shifts for 20 years, so he would never have to borrow anything. $15 for the widow who turned down opportunities to rebuild her life because her son needed stability. And a trip to Paris for the mother-in-law who appeared in his life just 5 years ago. I stayed at that party for 2 more hours. I ate a piece of cake that had no flavor. I listened to conversations about expensive restaurants and weekend trips. No one asked me how I was. No one noticed when I left my plate half-eaten. At 8 o'clock at night, I stood up from the sofa. Ryan was in the kitchen, laughing at something Brenda had said. Jessica was showing photos on her phone to a group of friends. I picked up my purse, my small paper bag with my $15 gift, and walked to the door. "You're leaving already, Mom?" Ryan asked without moving from his spot, without walking me out, without even seeming truly interested in my answer. "Yes, honey, it's late for me." "I'll call you a cab," he said, but he did not pull out his phone. He knew I would say no. "Don't worry, I'd rather walk a little." I stepped out onto the street, and the cool night air hit my face. My legs were trembling, but I kept walking. 1 block, 2 blocks, 3. When I was far enough away, when I knew no one could see me, I stopped under a streetlight and pulled out that $15 gift card. I looked at it for a long minute. I read the note again. It's important to be grateful for what we have. And then, for the first time all night, I truly smiled. But it was not a smile of happiness. It was a smile of something new. Something that was being born inside me right at that moment. Because they did not know. Ryan did not know. Jessica did not know. Brenda did not know. They did not know that I had spent 3 months preparing for this exact moment. They did not know that every slight, every forgotten promise, every small humiliation had been recorded, saved, and documented in my memory and in more secure places. They did not know that I had stopped being the naive mother who justified everything with love. That woman had died tonight on that sofa, holding a $15 gift card while her son promised another woman the world. I put the card back in my purse. I would keep it, not as a memory, but as evidence. As proof of how far the betrayal had gone, I kept walking toward the bus stop. My old shoes made noise against the pavement. I was wearing the same coat I had worn for 10 years. My gray hair was pulled back in the same simple bun as always. On the outside, I was the same Eleanor Vance, 67 years old, who had walked into that party. But inside, something had changed forever. I got on the bus and sat by the window. I looked at my reflection in the dark glass. I saw a tired woman, with deep wrinkles around her eyes, with worn hands and modest clothes. But I also saw something else. I saw determination. I saw clarity. I saw the end of one story and the beginning of a completely different one. The bus pulled away, and I left my son's house behind. I left behind the pink balloons and the fake laughter. I left behind the mother I had been for 38 years. Because tonight, at that precise moment, I had made a decision. They had given me $15 and a lesson on gratitude. Perfect. I was going to teach them a much more valuable lesson, a lesson about consequences, about justice, about what happens when you underestimate a woman who has nothing left to lose. I took my old phone out of my purse. I had a text from Ryan, sent 10 minutes after I left. Got home okay? I did not answer. Instead, I opened my contacts and searched for a name I had not dialed in years. Theodore Marshall, my old neighbor. The man I helped when he lost everything. The lawyer who owed me a favor he had never been able to repay. I wrote a simple message. Theo, I need your help. It's urgent. Can we meet tomorrow? The reply came in less than 2 minutes. Eleanor, of course. Whatever time you say. I owe you more than I can ever repay. I put the phone away and looked out the window. The city lights passed by quickly, blurry, like fading memories. But I was not going to fade away. Not this time. They did not know that I had found something 3 months ago. Something that changed everything. Something that turned my pain into power and my silence into strategy. But that was for later. Tonight, I just needed to get home, take off these shoes that were hurting me, and start planning every step of what was coming. Because if I had learned anything in 67 years of life, it was this. Women like me, the ones who have survived loss, betrayal, and being forgotten, are much stronger than anyone imagines, and much more dangerous when we finally decide to stop forgiving. I could not sleep that night. I sat in my small apartment, in the only armchair I owned, staring at the empty walls I had looked at for so many years. My home was simple: 2 bedrooms, a narrow kitchen, a bathroom with old tiles. Nothing compared to Ryan's 3-story house with its perfect lawn and its 2-car garage. But this house was mine. I had paid for it with my work, with my hands, with every stitch I had sewn for decades. I made myself a tea that I did not drink. I just needed to hold something warm in my hands while my mind traveled backward toward the memories I had tried to bury, but which were surfacing tonight like bodies in a river. How had I gotten here? At what point had my son become a stranger? I remembered the day Ryan was born. I was 29 years old. His father, Michael Vance, was so happy he cried when he saw him for the first time. That small, wrinkled baby was our miracle, our future, our reason for existing. Michael worked in construction. I sewed clothes for the women in the neighborhood. We did not have much, but we had love. We had plans. We had dreams for that boy sleeping in a second-hand crib, surrounded by all our affection. When Ryan turned 6, Michael died. An accident on the job site. A beam fell in the wrong place at the wrong time. My husband was 35 years old. I was widowed at 35 too, with a little boy and a mountain of debt to pay. I did not let myself cry much back then. I could not. Ryan looked at me with those enormous eyes, searching for answers I did not have, for a security I could barely fake. So I dried my tears and made decisions. I sold everything that was not essential. I was left with only my sewing machine, and I turned my living room into a small workshop. I worked from 5 in the morning until midnight, sewing prom dresses, hemming pants, making curtains, tablecloths, whatever anyone needed. Ryan grew up, and I watched him from my sewing machine. I helped him with his homework between seams. I made him breakfast before dawn and dinner after dusk. On weekends, when other kids went to the park with their parents, Ryan sat beside me and handed me thread. He helped me measure fabric. "Someday we're going to have a bigger house, Mom," he would tell me, with that child's voice full of hope. "And you won't have to work so hard." I would stroke his hair and believe him. I believed him because I needed to believe in something. When Ryan was 14, he came home with a letter from school. He had been accepted into a program for gifted students. It was his chance to go to a better high school, to have a different future than our neighborhood could offer. But it cost money. Not much for families like the ones I saw in magazines. But for me, it was a fortune. Special uniforms, books, transportation to the other side of town, materials. I worked more. I took jobs other seamstresses refused because they were too complicated or paid too little. My hands started to ache at night. My eyes grew tired from looking at needles and stitches under the yellow light of my old lamp. But Ryan went to that school, and he excelled. He got the best grades. The teachers loved him. I went to the parent-teacher conferences in my mended clothes and worn-out shoes, but I held my head high because my son was the best. Then came college. A partial scholarship. I had to cover the rest. I sold my antique sewing machine, the one that had been my mother's, and bought a cheaper one. I sold the few pieces of jewelry Michael had given me. I sold my wedding ring. Ryan never knew. I told him I had saved up enough. I did not want him to feel guilty. I did not want him to stop studying because of me. During those 4 years of college, I ate less so his bank account would have more. I wore the same clothes for years. I did not go to the doctor, even though my back ached more and more. I allowed myself no luxuries, no whims, no rest. And Ryan graduated with honors. He got a job at a big company. He started making money. Good money. He moved to an apartment in a better part of the city. "Now it's my turn to take care of you, Mom," he told me the day he signed his contract. "Everything you did for me, I'm going to give it back to you." Multiplied. I cried with happiness that day. I thought all the sacrifice had been worth it. I thought I could finally rest. I thought my son and I would be together, that he would fulfill that promise he had made me since he was a child. But then he met Jessica. At first, she seemed like a nice girl. Educated, pretty, from a good family. She came from a completely different world than ours. Her father owned several stores. Her mother had never worked a day in her life. When Ryan introduced her to me, I tried to be friendly. I cooked for her, showed her pictures of Ryan as a little boy, told her stories of when we were poor but happy. Jessica smiled, but it was a cold smile. Her eyes scanned my small apartment with an expression I knew well. It was the same expression the rich ladies in town wore when they came to my workshop to order dresses. Superiority disguised as politeness. After that visit, Ryan started to change. Small changes at first. He called me less. When I called him, his answers were shorter. "I'm busy, Mom. We'll talk later. I have a meeting." The visits became less frequent. Once a month. Then, every 2 months. Then, only on holidays. When he announced he was getting married, I was happy for him. But I also had a knot in my stomach I could not explain, as if I knew something was about to end. The wedding was large and expensive. I could not pay for almost anything. Jessica and her family took care of everything. I was just another guest, sitting at a table in the back of the hall, with distant cousins of Ryan's who barely knew me. Brenda, Jessica's mother, greeted me that day with a pat on the shoulder and a condescending smile. "You must be so proud that Ryan has come so far," she told me, as if she had had anything to do with it, as if her hands had been the ones that bled for him. After the wedding, everything got worse. Ryan and Jessica moved into that big house. I went only once in the first month. Jessica showed me every room with pride, but I could feel I was not really welcome. It was like visiting a museum, not a home. "Mom, you have to call before you come over," Ryan told me a week later, when I showed up unannounced with a casserole I had made for them. "Jessica needs her space. We need our privacy." I apologized. I promised to always call. I promised not to be a bother. And I kept my promise. I called before every visit. I asked if it was a good time. I only stayed for an hour. I always brought something with me, food or a small gift, so I would not arrive empty-handed. But the invitations became rarer and rarer. Ryan's birthdays started being celebrated without me. "It's just something small, Mom, just us." Then I would find out from photos on social media that it had been a big party with all of Jessica's friends and her family. 3 months before that Mother's Day that changed everything, something happened that opened my eyes in a brutal, definitive way. It was a Tuesday afternoon. Ryan had come to visit me. something unusual in those days. He said he needed to use my bathroom because he had a meeting nearby and did not have time to get to his office. I was happy to see him, even if it was just for those few stolen minutes. I made coffee while he was in the bathroom. When he came out, his phone was on the kitchen table. He had been in such a hurry he forgot it there. I was about to take it to him, but right then, it buzzed, and the screen lit up. It did not have a password. Or, he had deactivated it temporarily. I do not know, but I could see the full message that appeared on the screen. It was from Jessica. Is your mother gone yet? Brenda is coming in an hour, and I don't want her to run into her. You know how my mom gets when she has to pretend to be nice to people like that. My hands started to shake. People like that. Those 3 words stabbed into my chest as if they were real and sharp. Ryan came out of the bathroom, drying his hands. He saw his phone in my hands. He saw my face. He knew I had read the message. Mom, it's not what you think, he said quickly. And what is it that I think, Ryan? I asked, my voice calmer than I felt. Jessica didn't mean it that way. It's just that my mother-in-law is very particular, and when there are visitors, she prefers the house to be quiet. Quiet, I repeated. I'm the one who interrupts the quiet. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. Ryan took his phone, clearly uncomfortable. He looked at his watch. I have to go, Mom. I'm already late for that meeting. Of course, go. I don't want to be any more of a bother. Mom, please, don't make this harder. He left without hugging me, without kissing me, without looking back. I stood there in my kitchen, with 2 cups of coffee that no one was going to drink, feeling the floor move beneath my feet. People like that. As if I were less. As if all those years of sacrifice had turned me into something shameful. As if my poverty were contagious. I could not sleep that night. I could not stop thinking about that message, about Jessica's words, about the way Ryan had run off without even trying to really defend me. The next day, I did something I had never done before. Something I am not proud of, but that I needed to do. I called Ryan and told him I had found some old documents of his father's that I thought he might want to see. I asked him to stop by my house when he could. He said he would come on Saturday morning. He arrived early on Saturday. He seemed rushed. I showed him the documents. Old photos, certificates, things that really existed, but were not the real reason I had called him. While he looked at the photos, I made coffee again, and when he went to the bathroom, I took his phone from the table. This time it had a password, but I knew my son. I tried his birth date. It did not work. I tried his wedding date. Nothing. Then I tried Jessica's birthday. The phone unlocked. My hands were sweating. My heart was beating so hard I thought Ryan would hear it from the bathroom. But I needed to know. I needed to understand how much my son had changed. I opened the messages. I looked for the conversation with Jessica. I started reading backward, days and weeks of messages. What I found was worse than I had imagined. Your mom called again. That's 3 times this week. It's exhausting. Tell her you're busy. It always works. I do, but she gets sad and that makes me feel guilty. Ryan, you have to set boundaries. My mom says mothers-in-law like that never understand when to back off. I know. You're right. I kept scrolling. More messages. More conversations that broke my heart. Your mother brought that weird food she makes again. I don't even know what it is. I threw it out after she left. Jessica, it's her way of showing affection. It's her way of reminding us she comes from another level. My mom says it's emotional manipulation. Maybe. I hadn't thought of it that way. The tears started to fall onto the phone screen. I had to wipe them away quickly to keep reading, to keep destroying myself with every word. Then I found a group chat. Ryan, Jessica, and Brenda. The group's name was the Dawson Vance family. He had not even put his own last name first, the name I had given him, the name of his dead father. I read the messages in the group. It was mostly Brenda and Jessica talking. Ryan responded occasionally with emojis or short phrases. Ryan, darling, you have to think about your future children. Your mother's inheritance must be secured for you, not lost in that old apartment she insists on keeping. My mom doesn't have much, Brenda, just the house and some savings. Some savings that should be in an account in your name. For security. What if she gets sick and someone takes advantage of her? It's better if you manage it starting now. I don't know if she would accept that. That's why you have to be smart, son. Little by little. With love. Make her see it's for her own good. I sat on my kitchen floor with the phone in my hands, reading those messages over and over. They wanted my money. The money Michael had left from his life insurance. The money I had saved for 30 years without touching it because it was for emergencies. For my old age. So I would not be a burden to anyone. They wanted my house. The house I had paid for with my blood and sweat. And the worst part was that Ryan was considering it. He was not stopping them. He was not defending me. He was saying, "You're right, and I'll think about it," and little by little, I heard the water in the bathroom stop running. Ryan was about to come out. I quickly closed everything, locked the phone, and put it exactly where it had been. I wiped my tears on the back of my hand and stood up. When Ryan came out of the bathroom, I was pouring coffee as if nothing had happened. "Are you okay, Mom? You look pale," he said. "I'm fine. Just a little tired." Saturday we drank coffee. We talked about unimportant things. He told me about a project at work. I nodded and smiled and said the right things at the right times. But inside, something had died, and something else had been born. When Ryan left that day, I closed the door and allowed myself to cry. I cried for hours. I cried for the boy he had been. I cried for the man he had become. I cried for all the years I had wasted believing that a mother's love was enough. But after the tears came something different. Clarity. Cold, crystalline clarity. They wanted my money. They wanted my house. They wanted me to disappear quietly from their lives without causing problems. They wanted me to continue being the grateful, submissive mother who accepted scraps and smiled while they pushed me into an ever smaller corner. I dried my face and went to my bedroom. In the back of my closet, behind old boxes and clothes I no longer wore, there was a metal box. I took it out and opened it. Inside were all my important documents. The deed to my house, Michael's life insurance papers, the bank account statements. Everything was in my name. Ryan did not have access to anything. Not yet. Thank God. I had never been foolish enough to put anything in his name. The following Monday, I looked in my old address book for Theodore Marshall's number. I had not spoken to him in years, but I had never forgotten him. Theodore had been my neighbor when Ryan was a teenager. He was a lawyer, had a small but respectable office, a family that seemed happy, until his wife left him and took everything. The house, the savings, even his reputation. She accused him of things that were not true, but in court, with the expensive lawyers her family could afford, Theodore did not stand a chance. He lost everything. He had to close his office. He moved into a tiny apartment next to mine. I would see him come home at night, in the same wrinkled clothes, with a lost look in his eyes, the weight of a man who had been destroyed. For months, I brought him food. Not much, because I did not have much either, but a bowl of soup, a piece of bread, something hot so he would not have to worry about cooking. He tried to pay me. I always refused his money. "Someday, I'm going to pay you back for all of this, Eleanor," he would tell me. "When I get back on my feet, I swear I'm going to make it up to you. You don't owe me anything, Theo. Neighbors help each other. It's how we survive." One day, he knocked on my door with a suitcase in his hand. He had gotten a job in another city. A law firm needed someone with his experience. It did not pay much at first, but it was his chance to start over. "I don't know how to thank you, Eleanor. You literally saved my life." There were nights when I thought about giving up, when it didn't seem worth it to keep going. But then you would show up with your food and your smile and remind me that there was still goodness in the world. He left. He wrote me a few times during the first year. Then we lost touch. Life went on. But I never forgot him. Now, years later, I dialed his number, hoping it still worked. It rang 3 times before he answered. "Hello, Theo? It's Eleanor. Eleanor Vance. I don't know if you remember me." "Eleanor." His voice changed immediately. "Of course I remember you. How are you?" "I'm doing well. I need your help, Theo. It's urgent. It's about my son, and it's complicated." There was a brief silence. Then his voice became serious, professional. "Tell me where and when. I'll be there." We met 2 days later in a coffee shop far from my neighborhood, far from any place where someone might recognize me. Theo had changed. He was no longer the defeated man I had known. His hair was gray but well cut. He wore a simple but good quality suit, and he carried a leather briefcase. He stood up when he saw me enter. He hugged me with a genuine affection that made me want to cry. "You look good, Theo," I told him. "I'm here because of you, Eleanor. I never forget that. Every time I sign a case, every time I win in court, I think about those nights when you were the only person who treated me with dignity." We sat down. We ordered coffee, and then I told him everything. I told him about Ryan and how he had changed, about Jessica and her family, about the messages I had read, about their plans to take my house and my savings, about the Mother's Day that was approaching and the feeling in my gut that something worse was coming. Theo listened in silence, taking notes in a small notebook. His expression grew more serious with every word I spoke. "Do you still have access to those messages?" he asked when I finished. "No, I only saw them that one time. Ryan has a password on his phone now." "Documents? Everything is in your name?" "Yes. The house, the accounts, everything. Ryan has no access to anything." "Good. That's very good, Eleanor. But I need you to tell me something, with total honesty. What do you want to achieve with this?" The question took me by surprise. I was silent for a moment, staring at my coffee cup. "I want justice," I said finally. "I want them to understand that they cannot treat me like this, that they cannot erase me from my son's life as if I don't matter. I want them to know that the woman they underestimated is not as weak as they thought." Theo nodded slowly. "Then we are going to get you justice. But it has to be smart, legal, and final. We cannot leave any loose ends." For the next 3 hours, Theo and I put together a plan. He explained everything we needed to do, step by step. First, I needed to document everything. Every time Ryan ignored me, every time he declined an invitation, every derogatory comment I heard, I would keep a detailed journal with dates and times. Second, we needed to protect my assets. Theo would draft legal documents that would ensure no one could touch my house or my accounts without my explicit consent. We would get a statement of mental capacity certified by a doctor, so no one could argue in the future that I was not in my right mind when I made these decisions. Third, and this was the most important part, I needed to keep acting normal. I could not let Ryan or Jessica suspect that I knew anything. I had to be the same mother as always. Submissive, grateful, invisible. "It's going to be hard, Eleanor," Theo warned me. "You're going to have to smile when they hurt you. You're going to have to accept humiliations and act as if they don't affect you. Can you do that?" I thought about all the years I had already done exactly that, smiling when it hurt, accepting scraps and acting grateful, being invisible when all I wanted was to be seen. "I can do it," I told him. "I've been practicing my whole life." Theo put his hand over mine. "This is going to end well, Eleanor, I promise you. But I need you to trust me and follow the plan exactly as we've designed it. No improvising, no emotional confrontations. Cold, calculated, patient, I understand. One more thing. When this is over, when we execute the final plan, there will be no turning back. Your relationship with Ryan will change forever. You will probably lose it completely. Are you prepared for that?" That question hurt more than I expected, but the answer was clear. "I've already lost him, Theo, the son I raised, the boy who promised to take care of me. He doesn't exist anymore. The man he is now doesn't want me in his life. He only wants my money, so I have nothing left to lose." We left that coffee shop with a solid plan and an agreement. Theo would not charge me anything for his work. He said this was his way of finally paying me back for everything I had done for him. I tried to insist, but he flatly refused. "You saved me when no one else would, Eleanor. Now let me save you." The next few days were strange. I followed my normal routine, but everything felt different. It was as if I were acting in a play. Eleanor, the devoted mother, the role I had played for decades. Ryan called me to invite me to dinner. Something unusual. I immediately suspected they wanted something. I went to their house with a cake I had baked. Jessica greeted me with that fake smile I knew so well. Brenda was there too, sitting on the best sofa as if she owned the place. During dinner, everyone was excessively nice. Ryan asked about my health. Jessica praised my cake, although I noticed she only took one small bite. Brenda talked about how important family was. After dinner, as we were having coffee, Ryan brought up the topic I knew was coming. "Mom, Jessica and I have been talking about your situation." "My situation?" I asked, feigning confusion. "Yes, you live alone in that apartment. You're not getting any younger. What if you get sick? What if you fall and there's no one there to help you?" "I'm fine, honey. I'm 67, not 90. "We know, Mom," Ryan continued, looking at Jessica as if for support. "But we want to make sure you're protected," we thought. "Maybe it would be a good idea for you to put some things in my name, just for security. The house, the accounts. That way, if anything happens to you, everything is in order and there are no legal complications." Brenda nodded with that fake, concerned expression she had probably practiced in the mirror. "It's the sensible thing to do, Eleanor. My husband did the same with his mother years ago." She's much calmer knowing everything is settled. I took a sip of my coffee, counting to 10 in my head as Theo had taught me. I could not react. I could not let them see my anger or my pain. I had to keep being the naive mother they thought I was. "It's very considerate of you to think of that, Ryan," I said in a soft voice. "But I still feel capable of managing my own things. When I feel I can't anymore, I'll let you know." I saw frustration cross Jessica's face briefly. Ryan insisted a little more, using nice words about protection and family. But I held my position with politeness and smiles. That night, when I returned to my apartment, I called Theo immediately. "They tried," I told him. "Just as you predicted." "Did you tell them no?" "Yes, but sweetly, as you taught me." "Perfect. Now they'll try another strategy. Be on guard. And please, Eleanor, do not sign anything they put in front of you. Nothing. Even if Ryan cries or makes you feel guilty. I won't sign anything. I promise." The following weeks were a game of cat and mouse. Ryan and Jessica tried different tactics. One day they told me about a special savings account that, according to them, would give me better interest. Another day, they mentioned a lawyer friend who could help me organize my will for free. I listened. I nodded. I said I would think about it. And then I did nothing. Meanwhile, Theo and I worked in silence. He got me an appointment with a private doctor who certified in writing that I was in full command of my mental faculties. We signed documents that protected all my assets. I opened a new account at a different bank where I began to transfer my savings, little by little. I also started my journal. Every interaction with Ryan, with Jessica, with Brenda, I documented it. The date, the time, what they said, how they treated me, the times Ryan canceled plans with me, the times Jessica looked at me with disdain, the times Brenda talked about me as if I were not in the room. Then came Mother's Day, the day of the $15 and the gift card. The day that confirmed everything I already knew, but that still hurt as if it were new. After that night, after walking under the streetlights with my humiliating gift in my hand, after contacting Theo, I knew it was time to move to the next phase. We met in his office. It was a small but professional space, with shelves full of law books and an organized desk. "They've shown their hand, Eleanor," Theo told me. "Now we know exactly who they are and what they want. It's time to prepare the final blow. What do you need me to do?" "First, we're going to sell your house." I lost my breath for a moment. My house, the place where I had raised Ryan, where Michael and I had been happy, where every corner held a memory. "Sell it?" I repeated in a weak voice. "I know it hurts, but think about it, Eleanor. That house is your biggest asset. If Ryan manages to manipulate you or, worse, get some legal document for you to sign, that house would be the first thing he'd take. We need to convert it into money that we can move and protect." He was right. I knew it. But it hurt anyway. And where will I go? "For now, you'll stay there. We'll sell the house, but the deal will include that you can live there for 6 more months without paying rent. That gives us time to execute the rest of the plan. Afterward, when this is all over, you'll have enough money to start a new life wherever you want. A new life. The idea sounded impossible for a 67-year-old woman. A life where no one treats you like garbage. Where you can travel if you want. Buy new clothes. Go to nice restaurants. All those things you denied yourself for years because you were saving for a son who now gives you $15. His words hit me hard. He was right. I had spent my entire adult life denying myself everything. First for Michael and Ryan, when they were my real family. Then just for Ryan, when he was all I had left. I had lived like a poor person even when I no longer had to, because in my mind, everything I had was for my son. All right, I said finally. Sell the house. Theo nodded and took out more papers. Second, we're going to create an event. A big family reunion where everyone is present. Uncles, cousins, close friends, witnesses. We're going to set it for next Mother's Day. Exactly 1 year from now. A year is a long time. It's the time we need. We need that year to finish gathering evidence, to secure all the transactions, to prepare every detail of the plan. And believe me, the symbolism of doing it exactly 1 year later will make the impact much stronger. What will happen at this event? That's where you will reveal everything. The messages, the manipulations, the attempts to take your assets, everything. But you won't be the one to say it directly. We're going to prepare a presentation with proof, videos, audio recordings, screenshots, documents. How are we going to get all that? Theo smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a man who knew exactly how the world worked and how to use its rules in his favor. Leave it to me. I have contacts. Private investigators who owe me favors. We'll get everything we need, completely legally. For the next few months, my life became a double existence. On the outside, I was still Eleanor, the grateful mother. I answered Ryan's brief texts. I attended the family dinners when I was invited, which was less and less often. I smiled when Jessica made passive-aggressive comments about my clothes or my hair. But inside, and in private with Theo, I was someone else. I was a woman with a plan, with a purpose, with power. The house sold in 3 months. We got a good price. The money went directly into my new account, the one Ryan did not know about. I signed the agreement for the 6-month stay. Ryan never knew that his childhood home was no longer mine. Theo hired a private investigator, a discreet man who started following Ryan and Jessica. Not illegally, just documenting. Photos of them at expensive restaurants while I ate canned soup in my apartment. Videos of them on vacation while Ryan told me he did not have time to visit. The investigator also got something more valuable. Through legal channels, he obtained Ryan's call and text records. Not the full content that would have been illegal, but the metadata, the dates, the times, the frequency of communication. The numbers did not lie. Ryan sent an average of 25 texts a day to Jessica, 15 to Brenda, 5 to his work friends, and to me, his mother, an average of 2 texts per week. Most were one-word answers to my questions. Theo showed me the graphs he had created with that information, colored bars that visually showed the abandonment. It was devastating to see it in numbers, to see how little I mattered in my son's life, measured in cold, hard data. This is very powerful, Eleanor, Theo said. When the family sees these numbers, when they see exactly how much he has ignored you, he won't be able to deny it. He won't be able to say it's not true or that you're exaggerating. Meanwhile, I continued with my life as usual, or what was left of it. I had sold my sewing machine years ago, so I no longer had my job. I lived off the interest from my savings and the small pension I had left from Michael. My days were lonely. I woke up early out of habit, even though I no longer had to. I made coffee for one. I watched the news on my old television. I read books from the library. I went for walks in the park. Sometimes I saw other women my age with their children and grandchildren. Families laughing together, taking pictures, hugging with genuine affection, and I felt a pang in my chest that I no longer knew if it was sadness or envy or rage. Ryan called me approximately every other Sunday. 5-minute conversations where he asked me how I was. I said I was fine. He told me something vague about work. And then he had to hang up because he had things to do. He never asked what I did with my days. He never asked if I was lonely. He never asked if I needed anything. And I never told him because I had learned that he did not really care. On my 68th birthday, Ryan sent me a text. "Happy birthday, Mom. We love you so much." With a cake emoji. He did not come to see me. He did not call. Just that generic message that Jessica had probably reminded him to send. I sat alone in my apartment that day, with a piece of cake I had bought for myself at the corner bakery, and I allowed myself to cry. Not for the forgotten birthday. I was used to that. I cried for all the birthdays I had celebrated for him. The parties I organized with money I did not have. The gifts I bought by sacrificing other things. The love I gave without limits, hoping that one day it would be multiplied and returned. But after the tears, I called Theo. "How are the preparations coming?" I asked. "Good, very good. We have almost everything. How are you?" "Tired, sad, but determined." That's what's important. The determination. Because I'll be honest with you, Eleanor. What we're about to do is going to hurt. Not just them. It's going to hurt you too. Because it's the definitive end. After this, there's no reconciliation possible. I know, and I'm ready. The months continued to pass. Fall turned into winter. Winter into spring. Each season found me more prepared, stronger, more certain of what I was about to do. Theo and I met every 2 weeks to review the plan. We adjusted details. We added new evidence the investigator found. We practiced what I would say, how I would say it, when I would say it. "You can't hesitate," Theo repeated. "When the time comes, you have to be firm. No tears, no doubts. They are going to try to manipulate you emotionally. Ryan is going to try to use your mother's love against you. But you have to stay strong." "I will." "Are you sure? Because we still have time to call this off. We can just protect your assets, and you can walk away quietly. You don't have to do the public confrontation if you don't want to." I thought about that, about disappearing quietly, selling everything, moving to another city, changing my phone number, and just starting over without a word. But no, that would be too easy for them. They could go on with their lives without consequences. They could tell people I was the crazy mother who left for no reason. They could play the victim and receive sympathy they did not deserve. "No," I said firmly. "We're doing it as planned. I want everyone to know the truth. I want Ryan to see the consequences of his actions. I want Jessica and Brenda to understand that they underestimated the wrong person." Theo nodded, a mix of pride and concern in his eyes. "Then, let's move forward." 3 months before Mother's Day, I told Ryan I wanted to organize a big family dinner. A celebration. I said I felt the family was disconnected and that I'd like to bring everyone together before I was too old to do it. Ryan seemed surprised by the initiative, but he agreed. Jessica also agreed, probably thinking it would be another chance to show off her nice house and her perfect life. "At our house, Mom?" Ryan asked. "If it's no trouble, your house is bigger and prettier than my apartment. I want everyone to be comfortable." "Of course, no problem. Who do you want to invite?" I gave him a list. Ryan's uncles I had not seen in years. Cousins. Some old neighbors who had known us since he was a child. Family friends from when Michael was alive. Even some of Ryan's coworkers I had met at previous events. "That's a lot of people, Mom," Ryan said, a bit overwhelmed. "I know, but it might be the last chance I have to get everyone together. I'm 68 years old, honey. I don't know how much more time I'll have." I used my age as an excuse, the mortality card that adult children cannot ignore without feeling guilty. And it worked. "Okay, Mom, we'll have the dinner, but Jessica and I will handle the food and organization. You just have to show up and enjoy yourself." "Thank you, honey." What Ryan did not know was that I had already personally contacted every person on that list. I had explained, without revealing too much, that this dinner was very important to me, that I needed them to be there, that please, they should not miss it. Most accepted immediately. Some, especially Ryan's older uncles, asked me if everything was all right. I told them yes, that I just wanted to see them, that I missed them. Theo would be there too. I told Ryan I was inviting him because he had been a good family friend for years and because I wanted him to finally meet Jessica. Theodore Marshall? Ryan asked. The neighbor from before? Yes. He's done very well for himself. He's a lawyer. I thought you two might have things to talk about. Ryan suspected nothing. To him, I was just the sentimental mother who wanted to relive old times and bring people from her past together. The days began to pass more quickly. Suddenly, it was 2 months away. Then 1 month. Then 2 weeks. Theo and I had everything ready. The presentation was prepared. A 20-minute video with evidence after evidence. Text messages, audio recordings, photos, graphs, legal documents, all organized clearly, chronologically, irrefutably. We also had the envelopes ready, one for every adult present at the dinner. Inside each envelope, a printed summary of the main evidence and the legal documents showing that all my assets had already been transferred and protected. Are you nervous? Theo asked me a week before the dinner. Terrified, I admitted, but also relieved, as if I'm about to put down a weight I've been carrying for years. That's exactly what you're going to do. The night arrived, Mother's Day, exactly 1 year after the $15 humiliation. I got ready with care that afternoon. I put on a dress I had bought especially for this occasion. It was not expensive, but it was new, a deep green color that made me feel different. I fixed my hair in a different, more modern way. I put on a little makeup. I looked in the mirror and almost did not recognize myself. The woman looking back at me was not the submissive, forgotten Eleanor. She was someone else, someone who knew her worth, someone who was ready to fight. I arrived at Ryan's house at 6 o'clock in the evening. There were several cars parked outside. The family was already arriving. I rang the doorbell and Jessica opened the door. Her expression changed when she saw me. Surprise, confusion, maybe a little disgust because I did not look like the poor old woman she expected. Eleanor, she said, not calling me Mom as she sometimes did when she wanted to put on a show, you look different. Thank you, Jessica. I thought it was time for a change. I entered the house. The living room was full of people. Ryan's uncles were chatting in a corner. Some cousins were playing on their phones. Brenda was sitting on the best sofa, as always, with a glass of wine in her hand. Ryan came out of the kitchen and stopped dead when he saw me. Mom, he said, approaching slowly. You look good. That dress is new. I decided it was time to spend a little on myself. After all, I'm 68. I don't know how much time I have left to enjoy. I saw something cross his eyes. Guilt? Discomfort? I was not sure. The dinner proceeded normally at first. There was too much food on the table. Jessica had hired a catering service, of course. No homemade food. Everything was perfect and soulless. People ate, laughed, told stories. Ryan's uncles asked him about his work. Jessica's cousins talked about their children. Brenda told anecdotes about her recent trips. I ate in silence, observing everything. Theo was sitting next to me. From time to time, he would look at me and nod slightly, reminding me he was there, that everything was going according to plan. After dinner, when they served dessert, Ryan stood up and tapped his glass with a spoon, the same gesture he had made a year ago. I want to thank you all for coming tonight, he began. I know my mom wanted to bring the family together, and I'm glad everyone could be here. There was polite applause. I kept my expression neutral. I also want to take this moment to say something important, Ryan continued. He looked at Jessica, who smiled at him encouragingly. As many of you know, my mom isn't young anymore. And Jessica and I have been worried about her, living alone, with no one to take care of her if something happens. I felt my heart start to beat faster. This was not in the plan. Ryan was improvising something. That's why Ryan took an envelope from his jacket pocket. We've decided to do something about it. Mom, Jessica and I want you to come live with us. There were surprised murmurs around the table. Some sounded positive, others confused. We have that extra room upstairs, Ryan continued. We can turn it into your space. That way you won't be alone. That way we can take care of you as you deserve. He looked at me with a smile that probably seemed genuine to everyone else, but I could see what it really was. A play. A way to take control of my life, my decisions, my money. Ryan, I said in a calm voice. That's very generous. But I cannot accept. His smile faltered. Why not, Mom? It's what's best for you. Because I am still capable of taking care of myself. And because I value my independence. Mom, don't be stubborn. This is for your own good. Brenda intervened with her syrupy voice. Eleanor, Ryan only wants what's best for you. You should be grateful to have such an attentive son. Grateful. That word again. I am grateful, I said, looking directly at Ryan. Very grateful for many things. And that's why I want to take this opportunity, with everyone here, to say something important as well. I stood up. Theo did the same, moving toward the wall where there was a large screen Ryan used to watch movies. What are you doing, Mom? Ryan asked, his tone nervous. I'm going to give you all a gift, I said. All of you. The gift of truth. Theo connected his laptop to the screen. Ryan walked over quickly. Mom, I don't know what this is, but maybe we should talk about it in private first. No, honey. We've had enough private conversations. This one is public, as it should be. The screen lit up. A simple title appeared. The Truth About Eleanor Vance and Her Family. Jessica stood up. This is ridiculous. Eleanor, I don't know what you're planning, but we are not going to allow. Sit down, Jessica, I said, with a voice I did not recognize as my own. It was firm. It was strong. It was the voice of someone who had found her power. You either sit down and watch this, or you leave. But if you leave, everyone will know why. She looked at me with pure hatred, but she sat down. The video began. The first image was a photo of Ryan as a baby, in my arms. I looked so young, so happy, so full of hope. My recorded voice began to narrate. Theo and I had prepared every word carefully. My name is Eleanor Vance. I am 68 years old. I am the mother of Ryan Vance. And this is my story. The video showed photos of our life. Michael and me, newly married. Ryan growing up. The humble house where we lived. My sewing machine. When my husband died, Ryan was 6 years old. I was left alone with a child and a mountain of debt. I worked day and night for 22 years to give my son everything he needed. Education, opportunities, love, more photos. Ryan at school. Ryan graduating. Ryan on his first day of work. My son grew up and became a successful man. He promised me that when he could, he would take care of me as I had taken care of him. I believed him. Because that's what a mother's love is. You believe unconditionally. Then the tone of the video changed. The text messages appeared, the ones I had found on Ryan's phone, enlarged on the screen so everyone could read them clearly. Your mom called again. That's 3 times this week. It's exhausting. I heard gasps around the table. Ryan had turned pale. More messages appeared, one after another. Conversations between Ryan and Jessica. Between Jessica and Brenda. Cruel comments. Plans to manipulate me. Conversations about my money and how to get it. Your mother brought that weird food she makes again. I don't even know what it is. I threw it out after she left. My mom says mothers-in-law like that never understand when to back off. Your mother's inheritance must be secured for you, not lost in that old apartment. Every message was a stab. But not just for me. For everyone watching. Ryan's uncles stared at the screen in horror. The cousins murmured among themselves. The old neighbors shook their heads. Then came the graphs. The communication statistics. The colored bars that showed with mathematical precision how much Ryan had ignored me. 25 messages a day for Jessica. 2 per week for his mother. Last year, my voice continued in the video. On Mother's Day, my son gave his mother-in-law a trip to Paris. A complete package with a 5-star hotel. He hugged her and told her she deserved the world. The screen showed a photo of Brenda holding the tickets, smiling radiantly. He gave me this. The image changed. There was the $15 gift card. And the note. Mom, it's important to be grateful for what we have. The silence in the room was absolute. No one moved. No one breathed. $15, my recorded voice said, for the woman who sold everything she had to pay for his education. For the woman who worked until her hands bled so he would never have to borrow anything. For the woman who turned down opportunities to rebuild her life because her son needed her. The video continued. Documents appeared on the screen. Bank records showing all the transfers I had made to Ryan's account during his college years. Receipts for payments I had made in his name. My own medical bills that I had ignored so I could keep sending him money. The numbers were devastating. In total, over 22 years, I had spent over $120,000 on my son. Every cent documented. Every sacrifice turned into cold, exact numbers that no one could deny. $122,243, my voice said in the video. That is the exact amount I invested in my son's future. I don't expect him to pay me back. A mother's love is not alone. But I did expect respect. I expected dignity. I expected not to be treated like garbage. Ryan had stood up. Mom, please, turn this off. We can talk. Sit down, Ryan, Theo said in a firm voice. Your mother has the right to finish. One of Ryan's uncles, Jack, an older man who had known Michael, spoke in a hard voice. Sit down, boy. You're going to listen to what your mother has to say. Ryan sat down slowly, his face red with shame or rage. I was not sure. The video then showed the audio recordings. The private investigator had obtained legal authorization to record conversations in public places. He had followed Ryan, Jessica, and Brenda to restaurants, coffee shops, places where they spoke freely. The first recording began to play. It was Brenda, speaking to Jessica in an elegant restaurant. You have to push Ryan harder. That old woman is sitting on a small fortune, and he's not doing anything to secure it. If she dies without having transferred everything, there will be taxes, legal complications. You need to act now. I know, Mom, but Ryan gets sentimental when I talk about his mother. He still has that guilt complex, then use that complex. Tell him it's for her own good, that it's to protect her. Sons like him are easy to manipulate when they think they're doing the right thing. The two women laughed. That laughter echoed, amplified, in the total silence of the room. Brenda was now on her feet, white as a sheet. That's illegal. You can't record private conversations without. It was a public place, Theo interrupted with professional calm. And we have all the necessary legal permits. Would you like to see the documentation? Brenda shut her mouth. The next recording was of Ryan and Jessica, 1 week before this dinner. I don't understand why your mom wants to have this ridiculous dinner, Jessica was saying. It's like she wants to remind everyone she exists. Maybe she's lonely, Ryan answered, without much conviction. Well, she can find friends her own age. It's not our job to entertain her. We do enough by inviting her to the important things. I know. You're right. Sometimes it's exhausting having to deal with her. Exactly. And after this dinner, we're going to push harder for her to come live here. Once she's under our roof, it'll be much easier to get her to sign the papers we need. Are you sure that's legal? Of course it's legal. You're her son. She's going to want you to have everything. She just needs a little push. Ryan had said yes. He had agreed to the plan. Not enthusiastically, but not with resistance either. He had simply let his wife plan how to manipulate his own mother. Ryan's cousins were looking away. One of his aunts, Clara, was crying silently. The old neighbors who had known me for decades looked at me with a mixture of pity and admiration. The video reached its final part. My face appeared on the screen. I had recorded myself the week before, sitting in my apartment, speaking directly to the camera. I've spent this last year wondering if I was being too harsh, my image on the screen said. If maybe I was exaggerating. If a mother's love means forgiving everything, always, no matter how much it hurts. I paused in the video. My face showed all the pain of those years. But then I realized something. Love cannot exist only on one side. Respect is not optional. Dignity is not negotiable. And I deserve more than scraps of affection from a son who is ashamed of me. The screen went black. The video was over. Theo took a stack of envelopes from his briefcase. He began to distribute them around the table, one for each adult present. Inside these envelopes, he explained in a clear, professional voice, you will find certified legal documents proving the following. First, that Mrs. Eleanor Vance is in full command of her mental faculties, certified by 3 independent physicians. Second, that all of Mrs. Vance's assets have been transferred to accounts and properties in her exclusive name, inaccessible to any other person. Third, that the house where Mrs. Vance lived has been sold, and the money is legally protected. Ryan opened his envelope with trembling hands. He read the first document, and his face crumbled. "You sold the house," he said in a barely audible voice. "Dad's house. Our house. My house," I corrected him. "The house I paid for with my work. The house that was in my name. Yes, I sold it. Because I was not going to let you take it from me." "We weren't going to take anything from you," Ryan shouted, losing his composure. "We just wanted to help you." "Help me?" My voice rose for the first time all night. "Help me by giving me $15 while you give your mother-in-law a trip to Paris? Help me by planning how to manipulate me into signing papers? Help me by calling me exhausting with your wife?" Ryan had no answer. He just stared at the document in his hands, as if he could not believe what he was reading. Jessica stood up violently, knocking over her chair. "This is insane. You're a bitter old woman who can't accept that your son has his own life, that it doesn't revolve around you." "You're right," I said calmly. "His life doesn't revolve around me, clearly. But my life doesn't have to revolve around being humiliated and used either." Brenda finally found her voice. "Ryan, you don't have to tolerate this. She's your mother. She's legally obligated to." "She is not obligated to do anything," Theo interrupted. "Mrs. Vance is an independent adult with full control over her assets. She has no legal obligation to leave anything to anyone. And after what we've presented here tonight, I think we can all understand why she has made these decisions." Uncle Jack stood up. He was Michael's older brother, a man of principle who had always been fair. "Ryan," he said, his voice full of disappointment, "your father would be ashamed. Michael died so you could have a future, and this woman," he pointed to me, "sacrificed everything to fulfill your father's dream, and this is how you repay her." "Uncle Jack, you don't understand. I understand perfectly. I understand that you forgot where you came from. I understand that you let these two," he looked at Jessica and Brenda with contempt, "turn you into someone your father wouldn't recognize." Aunt Clara also stood up. "Eleanor, forgive us. Forgive me. We should have been more present. We should have noticed how they were treating you. It's not your fault, Clara. I allowed it. I kept hoping things would get better, that my son would remember who he was." More people began to get up from the table. The old neighbors came over to hug me. Ryan's uncles looked at him with a mixture of anger and disappointment. The cousins whispered among themselves, clearly on the side of the truth they had just witnessed. Jessica grabbed her purse. "I'm leaving. I'm not staying here for this circus." "Go," I told her. "But before you do, I want you to know something. That extra room you wanted to turn into my space, use it for something else. Because I am not going to live here. I am not going to live under the same roof with people who see me as a problem to be solved." Brenda followed her daughter to the door. Before leaving, she turned to me. "You're going to die alone, Eleanor, without family, without anyone to take care of you. I hope your pride is worth it." I looked her straight in the eye without blinking. I would rather die alone with my dignity intact than live surrounded by people who despise me. And for your information, Brenda, I'm not going to die anytime soon. In fact, I'm just beginning to live." Jessica and Brenda left, slamming the door. The sound echoed in the house like thunder. Ryan was still sitting, his head in his hands. Some guests began to leave, but not before coming over to hug me, to whisper words of support, to give me their phone numbers in case I needed anything. Uncle Jack was the last to go. He put his hand on my shoulder. "Michael would be proud of you, Eleanor. Not of him," he motioned toward Ryan with his head, "but of you, for standing up for yourself, for not letting them walk all over you." When everyone had left, only Ryan, Theo, and I remained in that large, silent room. Ryan finally looked up. His eyes were red. I did not know if it was from anger or unshed tears. "How could you do this to me, Mom?" His voice trembled. "Humiliate me in front of the whole family. Destroy my reputation." "I didn't destroy anything, Ryan. I simply showed the truth. You destroyed your own reputation with your actions. But I'm your son. Mothers are supposed to forgive everything. Mothers forgive, I said in a tired voice. But mothers are also human beings with limits. And you crossed all of mine. I didn't mean to hurt you. Jessica can be a little intense sometimes, but I never wanted. You never wanted to hurt me, but you did. Over and over and over again. And the worst part is, it wasn't out of ignorance or by mistake. It was by choice. You chose your wife and her family over me. You chose your comfort over my dignity. You chose $15 when you had promised me the world. Ryan stood up. So what am I supposed to do now? How do I move on after this? That's something you'll have to figure out on your own. Just like I had to figure out how to move on when your father died. Just like I had to figure out how to live with the pain of watching my only son become a stranger. Mom. His voice broke. But I had already said everything I had to say. I had no words left. I had no tears left. There was only an emptiness where unconditional love used to be, and that emptiness was, paradoxically, liberating. I picked up my purse. Theo offered me his arm, and I took it. Wait, Ryan said when we reached the door. Where are you going to go? To live my life, Ryan. The life I denied myself for 68 years because I thought my only purpose was to be your mother. But it turns out, I'm more than that. I'm Eleanor Vance, and I'm just starting to find out who that woman is. Will I see you again? I stopped at the door. I thought about that question. The question that any mother would want to answer with an immediate yes. But I was not just any mother anymore. I don't know, honey. That depends on you. It depends on if you ever truly understand what you did. It depends on if you can see past what Jessica and Brenda have put in your head and remember who you were before them. It depends on if the man you were can come back or if he died forever. I walked out of that house with Theo by my side. The night air was fresh and clean. I felt lighter than I had in years. How do you feel? Theo asked when we reached his car. Like I've been holding my breath for decades, I said, and I can finally exhale. That night I slept in a hotel. A nice hotel, the kind I had never allowed myself to spend money on. I ordered room service. I took a long bath in the enormous tub. I lay down in soft, clean sheets that smelled like lavender. And for the first time in a year, I slept without nightmares. The next morning, Theo came to pick me up. He had airplane tickets in his hands. Paris, he said with a smile. First class. 5-star hotel. 2 full weeks. After that, if you want, we can book Rome, Barcelona, Lisbon. Wherever you want to go, Eleanor. I took the tickets with trembling hands. Paris, the city Brenda had visited, while I received $15. The city that represented everything I had been denied. I can't accept this, Theo. It's too much. Eleanor, you paid for my meals when I had nothing. You gave me hope when I wanted to give up. This isn't charity. It's justice. Let me give you this. Please. I looked at the tickets. I saw my name printed there. Eleanor Vance. Destination, Paris, France. Departure. In 3 days. All right, I said, tears streaming down my cheeks. But this time they were tears of something new, something I had not felt in so long I had almost forgotten its name. Happiness. I'll go to Paris. The following months were the strangest and most wonderful of my life. I traveled. First Paris, where I walked the streets I had seen in movies, ate in small restaurants, visited museums, and sat in cafes watching people go by. Then Rome, where the ancient ruins reminded me that even things that seem eternal eventually change. Barcelona, where the art and colors gave me back something I thought I had lost forever, wonder. In Lisbon, I met a group of women my age, travelers too, some widows, some divorced, all searching for something they had lost along the way. We became friends. We shared stories, laughter, and cheap wine on terraces overlooking the ocean. One of them, Judith, asked me why I had waited so long to start traveling. Because I thought my life was already over, I told her. I thought at my age, all that was left was to wait for the end. And what do you think now? Now, I think maybe my real life is just beginning. 6 months after that dinner, I received a message from Ryan. It was long, several screens of text. He said he and Jessica were in couples therapy, that she had gone to live with her mother temporarily, that he had had a lot of time to think. He said he was sorry, that he had not truly understood what he had done until the entire family stopped speaking to him, until his uncles sent him messages saying how disappointed they were, until he was left alone in that big house and realized he had traded his mother for the approval of people who never really loved him. He said he wanted to see me, that he wanted to try to repair what he had broken. I read the message 3 times, sitting in a cafe in Seville with the Spanish sun warming my face, wearing new clothes that made me feel pretty, with plans to go to Morocco the following week. I did not answer right away. I let the message exist on my phone for days while I decided how I felt about it. Did I want to forgive Ryan? A part of me, the mother who still lived inside, said yes. But another part, the woman who had found her strength, asked if forgiveness meant allowing myself to be hurt again. Finally, 2 weeks later, I replied, "Ryan, I appreciate your message. I appreciate that you are reflecting, but I need you to understand something. I am not going to go back to being the mother I was. That woman died the night of the $15. The woman I am now has boundaries. She has dignity. She has her own life that does not revolve around being needed by you. If you can accept that, if you can love me not because you need me, but because you choose to, then maybe, someday, we can try to rebuild something. But it will be different. I am different. And I am not going to apologize for it." His reply came hours later. "I understand, Mom, and you're right. I'm going to work on myself. I'm going to try to be the son you deserve to have. I'm not asking you to forgive me now. I'm only asking that, someday, you give me the chance to show you I can change. I do not know if Ryan will truly change. I do not know if our relationship can be saved, or if it is broken forever. And the truth is, I no longer feel like my happiness depends on that answer. Because for the first time in my life, I am enough for myself." A year after that dinner, on another Mother's Day, I was sitting in a restaurant by the sea in Greece. I had met a man named Robert, a Spanish widower who was also traveling alone. It was not romance. It was companionship. It was someone to share a good meal and good conversation with, without expectations or obligations. My phone buzzed. It was a message from Ryan. A photo. Him, alone, in front of his father's grave. The message said, "I told Dad everything that happened. I think he's disappointed in me. But I also think he's proud of you. I am too, Mom. I know I have no right to say it after everything, but I am. I'm proud that you didn't let us destroy you." I looked at the photo for a long time. Michael, my husband, Ryan's father, the man who had died too young and left me with the responsibility of raising our son alone. I took a picture of my view. The blue sea, the clear sky, my hand with new bracelets holding a glass of white wine. I sent it to Ryan with a simple message. "Your father taught me that true love doesn't have to hurt. It took me many years to learn it, but I finally understand." I put the phone face down on the table. Robert was looking at me with that kind smile I had grown to appreciate. "Is everything all right?" he asked. "Yes," I said, and it was the truth. Everything is all right, because my name was no longer just Ryan's mom. It was no longer just Michael's widow. It was no longer just the poor seamstress from the neighborhood. My name was Eleanor Vance, 69 years old, traveler, friend, free woman. And my story was just beginning.